Hello and welcome to Fearless Authenticity with me, Jeanne Sparrow. This is where we find our biggest source of inspiration and our biggest source of success in who we really are. Now, I want these to be conversations and maybe even some meditations about what it looks like and feels like when we use our unique gifts to find our passions, make our dreams come true, and engage with the world in the way we were created to serve. Now, I do hope it gets deep because that's where we find the good stuff, but do not get it twisted. It is all about the fun of life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. And as I always say, let's be brave, be free, be you together. Now, my guest today is the owner and CEO of MGPG Events, a boutique firm specializing in event planning and production, community engagement, experiential marketing, and public relations. This woman is the dynamic creator and executive producer of Be We Next, the Black Women's Expo, which at almost 30 years has been the nation's longest running empowerment exposition for African-American consumers. She has worked in broadcasting, often on the air for NBC, Ebony Jet Johnson Publishing, and other top outlets, and has won numerous awards, including the Chicago Defender's Woman of Excellence Award. She is definitely that, and it is my honor and my pleasure to welcome one of the realest women in the business that I know, the one and only Mary Green.
Hi, Jeanne.
How you doing, Mary?
I'm recuperating. The show is just over, and as you get older, you're like, okay, it's a little tough, it's a little tougher, but it's not bad. It's Wednesday, and I'm up and out. That's
good. It's good.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Expo, bringing it back from the pandemic. You've done Detroit and Chicago. Atlanta's coming up in December. Yes. What do you love the most about the Black Women's Expo at large, and especially now that you're back in person again after doing it virtually during the pandemic? Has that given you a different perspective on what the Expo really does for us? We can take a pause for you to turn off your phone.
I need to turn off the phone, don't I? Who would think that they would be calling? But of course,
I'm always calling you. But
I can tell you that what I think I love and I look forward to every year is watching people as they come in and seeing the different kinds of women, to see generations, to see the smallest little kids, little girls, all the way up to to their grandmothers come in together, to see people dressed and ready for the Expo. I mean, some people come, ready to shine, actually. But to see that, I think, is the best part. Is to see how people come in. I mean, I get up to the front like I was this weekend, taking tickets and giving wristbands. And my publicists, my folks are always saying, if you don't, Mary, go, please, Mary, go. You shouldn't be up here. I'm like, this is what I love, and so I'm always greeting people and, thank you for coming. And I, probably holding too much conversation, and I need to get out of the way. And that's what they tell me. And then I'll go away. About an hour later, they'll see me back up there again. And then they're like, Mary's back up front again. So, that's the part that it just really touches my heart. I'll tell you, Jeanne.
You know what? I feel like the Expo is a reflection of you. And that's why that is so important. At least for me, because granted, the entire time that I've come to Black Women's Expo has been as a working professional in the business. So it's like I get to see a little bit of the behind the scenes, but it's heartwarming to see the person who originated this and kept it sustained for as long. It makes me feel good to see you there.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the Expo's path to where it is now. I mean, you started it, okay, and the first original name is still my favorite, the Expo for Today's Black Women.
And only you know that that was the original name.
I don't know why, but it sticks in my head, and that it's something I actually love. Yeah. But I mean, go ahead.
I created that name, and I thought it was, clever.
It was
just straight out the Black Women's Expo, an Expo for Today's Black Women, and people loved it. But it started then in about 1993, and I thought, we can do this. We can do something for the listening audience of V103. At that time, things were up in the air with the FCC. They weren't requiring radio stations to do enough public affairs programming. And I came from that, actually, in Rochester, New York, was in television. I had a public affairs program, which most people don't know. I had a television program on the weekend. And so I came from that, and I'm wondering why we're not doing enough programming like that. And so when I was given the opportunity that, to do an expo, Barry Mayo said, "You think you can do this?" And I'm like, I was young, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this, Didn't know what the heck I was talking about. But I always believed that there was no real magic to all of these things that I felt that African Americans were told that they can't do. And I was like, okay, what is this? So we got some exhibitors on the floor. We got a stage with entertainment, which we do all the time as a radio station, and you've got some sponsors, which our advertisers were the first group that we went to. I'm like, we can do this. And the sales team and management decided this was something to do. Programming liked it. Here I was in promotion. I'm like, okay, and I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it good and sing. And we did from day one. And it was amazing. We were overwhelmed. I will be honest with you. The night before, we were on the floor at the radio station with a bottle of wine, crying. This is the truth, with the sales manager at that time. Like, what did we get ourselves into? And I think Barry and those guys from the beginning knew that they couldn't stay there. They couldn't stay with the radio station, because just 2 years later, they were like, well, you take this show on the road out of here.
That was what I was going to ask you, because in our world, that rarely happens. Once you create something like that, that is a brand that people are attracted to, the radio station retains ownership of it, or any broadcast entity would say. So what was that like for you? Because you started it and you took it and you were like, it's mine now?
No, it didn't happen quite like that. Okay. So they asked me to go on the outside and produce it. So I was paid to produce it. I was paid to produce it. And to be honest with you, for about 6 months, I kept the job at the radio station and was on the outside in office 1 block away. Took one of my staff members with me, and we were producing the show on the outside for the radio station.
Wait, with just 2 people?
Just 2 people. I mean, I hired some more people, but I did take one of the staff people out of the radio station, and we started to produce the show on the outside, and it was still owned by B103 at the time. But it took about 5 different general managers, 5 different radio station owners for someone to say, wait a minute, who is she that does this show that everybody knows? She doesn't work for us. This is really her show. And one of the general managers gave it to me. And that's when I became owner.
Wow. So you didn't even have to negotiate for it. They were just kind of like, this is really yours. Well, you know what?
And I really think, Jeanne, that they didn't think it was going to last.
I wondered if that might have played into it. You anticipated my next question, because I was like, did they just not know? Because the thing is, the vibe was very different in the 90s. Like, that was when the Black Expo was a huge thing. And I want to say it started in Indianapolis, maybe? I can't remember.
Indianapolis has Indiana Black Expo. They always still do. Okay. But we had a show here, Chicago Black Expo.
Oh, so it was separate from the one that was there. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember the one in Indy, because that was like the biggest one in the Midwest for a while and all of that. And then it did seem like there were times when the expos weren't as popular. What is it, though, that you think made your expo and the focus on women so enduring? Because now you're really the only one. There are some that pop up locally or what have you, but when it comes to national presence and the size and scope of what you do, what is it that you think from the original creation or how it's evolved that gives it that staying power, Mary?
Yeah, I truly think that number one is being, focused on women, on Black women. In the beginning, people were like, why do you got to call it that? Can it be for all women? I remember at the radio station, there was a group of managers at one point saying, why does it got to be called Black women? Because that's who it's for and that's who needs it, and all of the reasons that we started it. But I think if we ever went that direction of saying the Women's Expo, would have been gone, because there's women's expos around the country that start a Southern Women's Show. They're not as big, and some of them are gone. I'm not sure that show is gone, but some of those shows are gone. So we had a mission and we had a target, and we stuck to it. Even though men are allowed to come, they definitely are allowed to come.
And they have a good time. Because it's because we're there.
That's exactly what the first year that ABC7 came, had the cameras talking to men. He said, "Why are you here?" He said, "Where else will we be? It's nothing but a group of, it's a big group of women. We're going to be here." So, but I think it was that just being number one that we, targeted that audience. And we used to say, produced by Black women for Black women.
Yeah.
So we really kind of knew exactly what we needed to explore and talk about at the show. And in the beginning, and even now, it was based around our workshops and our seminars. And we still have 40, 50 seminars over the 3 days, in addition to the exhibit hall and in addition to the main stage and all the entertainment. But really, we bring in those experts from around the country to talk about the issues that we're all facing. And so that hasn't stopped. And in fact, that part is growing. We're trying to figure out how do we handle that, because everybody wants a seminar. Every sponsor wants a seminar or two. Every not-for-profit in the city wants to talk about those things that they do and have grants and are paid to do. And those are things we need to talk about, whether it's around our health. We had a huge thing on Alzheimer's that a big organization came in. So, and it changes every year, or, what is, COVID. Last year, we had a huge vaccination station. So health for African Americans and Black women is a huge part of our show. And it's maybe taking it over, it seems like, because every health organization there is in hospital in this city, in Illinois Department of Public Health, and all of them are at the show every year.
But the thing I find interesting, and you've talked about this too, and maybe we've talked about it together, is the fact that when this started 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago,
yes,
that the need for these resources, the spaces to have them in, we needed them then, and almost all this time later, we still need them now. Even though they exist, and even though there is your expo, there's Essence Festival, there's these different places, and there's access to things online and locally in a lot of places. But I feel like in a lot of ways that your expo uniquely addresses something that we have, a community that we've not been able to build in any other way. And I don't know, I'm not sure if that's a sad thing or a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a that double-edged sword will get you every time.
Yeah, but one of the things I think that part of what you're saying is those issues we still have them. Yeah. Things haven't changed drastically. We're still dealing with, I remember racial profiling when that was huge in this city, and the Highland Park police, and you couldn't drive through there unless you're going to get stopped. I got the police to come, had them sitting on the front row.
I remember that.
We did a town hall meeting, and it was like, we're going to talk about this issue. And it's still going on, though, not necessarily in Highland Park.
Right.
But that whole racial profiling, it hasn't changed. And many of the issues we talk about and have at the show are still there. I mean, whether it's financial or health or business or financial independence, how do we get the same resources that everyone else gets? Housing and redlining, and all of these things are still there. Now, they may have gotten better. We hope they have. But yeah, those issues remain.
Yeah. Now, what is it like having this business that was basically handed back to you? It was yours all the time, but it was there. What advice do you have for people who have these ideas that can be life-changing?
Yeah.
Really? How, especially for events and marketing, because we learned a whole lot of lessons about that during the pandemic. What are the best moves to make, biggest mistakes to avoid? And maybe what's the best piece of advice you got as you morphed into a company of your own?
Well, and I was saying to my publicist, I never think about, these phones, they are amazing.
How many you got, Mary?
I don't know, but phones you got? How many do I have?
You probably got 3. I know you.
I'm turning them off. Is that, I never thought about it like that. I really didn't. I think if I spent too much time thinking about it, even from the beginning, I wouldn't be doing this anymore. I wouldn't have done it because it's not like we were trained. We were doing events for the radio station. That was easy enough and fun enough. I remember being at Taste of Chicago for 10 days. Now it's only 3. All of those things where we're set up in a whole fort sort of like, and we sat there for 10 days. I'd come back and forth every day, but so things have changed. What would I say to people? You know what? I think with me, it's always been just to keep moving forward. We are workaholics. I'm a workaholic. Everybody knows that. I think I'm a workaholic. I'm even in the office today when my whole office is closed for the week after the expo. I'm here. When I came in, the guys at Management said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, we knew you'd be here. I have things to do." So, to me, more stress is on me when I'm not doing them than when I am, because they're going to pile up. They are going to pile up. So, I try to, do as much as I can every day. But I think, over the years, I have been approached by women and men who want to do something similar, and especially men. And I still get asked even this weekend, when are you going to help us do a men's expo? When are you guys going to come forward with what you really want to do? Because I've met with a couple groups before, and it's hard to get them to follow through. It's hard to get a lot of folks to follow through, because one of my staff that came to work with us last year, he said, if I could tell anybody what I see you guys do, it would be amazing. He said, I never knew that it was this intricate, whether it's from, putting out our own sponsorship packages and putting that document together, which could be 40 pages, our website, keeping that up and all of that, researching and going after these companies. Because if we don't get the corporate sponsorship, it'd be hard to do the show. Going after these corporate sponsors, creating ideas for them. I mean, it is not a cookie cutter thing. That's the part that I like so much about it, is the whole creative process. So we decide, okay, we're going after, I don't know, Groupon, but what are we taking to Groupon? We're not sending them this little cookie cutter package where you can be platinum, gold. No. What is Groupon out there doing? What is Walgreens out there doing? What is their mission? What can we create that's gonna pique their interest? And so we put those kind of packages together. We try to get in front of them, and then we're amazed that we have some success when we do that.
The thing that's interesting about this, my next question to you was going to be, because this is something that I've told you before. Like, I know when it's an MGPG event. I know when it's a Mayor Green thing, because you got your fingerprints all over it. And I'm starting to see how that happens, not only because you physically are doing it, but you're also ideating, the idea process has to do with it as well. But the thing that I find interesting about your work, like, there's a few different things. Like, it's consistent, then a mug. Like, you are always looking to uplift our community. Yes. And to bring us to a different place. But then there's that signature Mary Green thing. How do you get and communicate that to your staff to be able to execute something that is so authentically you? Like, you are so consistent in your brand, because your brand is you. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's like, how do you do that? But the thing that you've been able to scale it because your team is a representative of you. And somehow you get them to execute in the way that you do. Like, how do you do that, Mary?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been through a whole lot of folks, because everybody is not up to that task. We work. We are in here, and I tell anybody, if you see me in the office, I'm here to work. I'm not here to play. I'd be home somewhere. We are nonstop. A month or two before the expo, we're in here. We get in at whatever time we get in. It is nonstop. No one probably goes to lunch. We're bringing food in. Thank God where our office is, it's tons of restaurants over here in Fulton Market. But we, and then sometimes I order food in, because, and I'm not telling people they can't go to lunch. No one wants to, because they're working on something. They want to get it done. They're excited about something that's going on. I will tell you, one of the ideas we came up with last year is because, the pandemic, and there were a lot of corporations out here that said they wanted to support Black businesses, right? You heard it everywhere, right? And some of us are still trying to find where that money, where that support is coming from. But as it related to the expo, it was like, okay, what can we come up with? So we came up with a support Black business sponsorship, where major corporations could bring in 10 small Black businesses at no charge to the business. They would pay the sponsorship, but they would be under their pavilion. We had 5 companies that did that right away. Made banks I won't name names, but they did it right away. And we had 6 this year. So, they brought in businesses that wouldn't have never been at the expo, would not be able to afford it. And they may be clients. So with banks, they did some of their clients. Groupon did it in 2021. They got people off their platform, and they had to be Black. And that right there brought in a whole stream of exhibitors that we never had. So, but we had to think about that. How do we get them? Because everybody, it's not like you could just go call up, Bank of America and say, look, give us some money because I hear you're giving out money. We had to come up with the idea, and they were blown away by the idea. I tell you, I won't say who it is, but one of the companies that was in last year, somehow we never got to her this year. And I got a text already. She said, here's my cell. And I will tell you, this is a company that most people it's local, but that most people can't get to. I got an email already, a text saying, Mary, this is my cell. Do not let me forget next year.
Wow. That has to make you feel really good.
It does. It does. I don't pat myself on the back. I think most people know that about me. I am strictly behind the scenes. They have to push me up front to talk. Talking to you was like, my nerves. I'm like, oh my God. I said, Jeanne is so deep. I said, I've got to get myself together for this. I did. Because I don't talk about it. Right. I just do it.
You just do it. But you know what though? There's so many layers that, until I became an entrepreneur, like I appreciated it from the outside in. And I think because we have, similar, maybe not the same past, but we have that background in broadcast together. Yes. And that's one thing. And I do think that trains us to some extent for entrepreneurship, but it's not the same. Until you have a business, you don't know. And it is in the doing, but it's understanding how the doing happens that helps us all move forward. And those collective actions build that generational wealth, not just within our families, but within our communities. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I was like, you've been able to stay in this game for this long.
Yeah.
And a big part of your success is because of how you in particular do it. And the other part I wanted to talk about is getting through the challenges of it all. Because can I tell you one of the biggest things, and I don't know if this was your biggest challenge, but I remember one of the things that I was disappointed the most about for the pandemic was because Black Women's Expo is usually in the spring in Chicago. It was like April, 12th, 13th, something like that.
It's the last weekend in March or the first weekend in April.
And we had been pumping up on V103, where I work now, on the weekends, and we had been talking about it. And I had spoken for the first time. I had just started my business a couple years before. I had spoken in 2019, was planning to speak in 2020, and all of these things. And it was like, Expo ain't gonna happen. Wait a minute. It's a couple, because when it first started, we were like, oh, it's gonna be done in a couple of weeks. We'll be back to it and everything. Talk me through how you made that shift so quickly, because you had less than a month. You had only like a couple weeks to put all that stuff online.
Well, so that was tough. And when I think about it, the whole thing, I hate the word pivot, but we did it. We really did during that whole year in 2020, because we were not able to do the show at all in 2020.
Right.
And we started to teach ourselves how to do virtual events. And I remember a client asked me in 2021, how many did I do? I was bidding on something. And I said, we do virtual events. They're like, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know nothing about virtual. I said, okay. She said, how many did you do? And that was one of the questions in this bid. And I went back to look, and we'd done like 17.
Right.
It was like 17. I didn't know we did that many, and I don't mean little conversations. I mean, we did major galas for the Association of Black Cardiologists. We did major things virtually. And so we taught ourselves, number one, how to do that. But, the city wasn't open. So all of 21, we started with our date in March again. And they kept saying it ain't, because of the pandemic, we can't open up.
We're not sure.
Yeah. We're not sure. So we kept moving it. Then I think we had a date in May. Mayor still hadn't opened it up. We kept moving. And somebody said, how did you get that August date? I said, I just kept contacting McCormick, what's available? Give me a new date. Give me a new date. And as we moved and moved, and by the time that we, probably you're right, about a month and a half before is when she opened the city. And it was like, wow, we can do the August date. But I don't know if you remember that on that Monday before the Friday of the start of our show, she made Friday mask mandate.
Yes, last year. Yep, I remember that. I remember that.
The first day of our show was mask mandate for the city. So I was like, okay, wait a minute, we're not going to have any attendance. We got a show, we got sponsors, we got a show, but we're not going to have any attendance. I was talking to somebody about that. They said, well, how did it come together? I said, you know what I think happened when you really think about it? It made people more comfortable to attend. Everybody's wearing a mask.
And you couldn't know that going in, how people would respond to it.
Everybody's got on a mask. And sisters came. I forgot what media did an interview, and I mentioned that to them. And they said, do you have pictures of that? I said, we do. How the women came, color coordinated. If you got on pink, you got on a pink mask. If you got on stripes, you got on striped man. I mean, we brought it. And I said it made the women, they wanted to get out and come anyway. But I believe it made them more comfortable to know that everybody would be wearing one.
What is it that you think sustains you through those challenges? Like, do you have kind of a go-to strategy to deal with all because I'm sure the pandemic is not the first challenge that you had faced in the 20-some years you have been doing it prior to that. If there are any others you want to share, but what I'm really interested in is what is the thing that keeps you moving forward? Like you said, like your goal is to keep moving forward. What's the thing that keeps you moving forward? What's the fallback when it all falls apart? You go, what's going on in your head that keeps you moving forward?
My mom, I hear her. That was her thing. Her best saying was, always just keep putting one foot before the other.
Girl.
And just keep putting one foot, when we would get into trouble in teenagers, high school, whatever, put one foot before the other. And it just kept me knowing that, calm down and just, figure it out. I don't ask for a lot of help and assistance. I had to learn how to do that. I really did have to learn how to do that. Years ago, I don't know if you remember when we tried to do the show as a spiritual event and that failed.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Uplift Chicago.
Oh, I didn't, girl, I don't think I realized that was connected.
It was connected. The Expo was, yeah. And that failed miserably. But I asked one of our top corporate sponsors, I went to him and I laid it out on the table. He said, I will support you. He gave me double the dollars that they normally give. And he said, I'm going to give it to you in the fall so you can use it as seed money. And it makes me want to cry always when I think about that he had that kind of faith in me. Because, he would tell me about situations where they put money into different not organizations, but different events, and the events never happened. The money never came back. And he had faith in me that we would go forward with the show and we would make it happen. In fact, that person that I'm talking about, I'm not naming names, was standing in the crowd taking pictures when El DeBarge on Sunday. And El was like, this is so, I love this event. How do you do it? Whatever. He was talking. It was a small crowd. It was after his performance. And I pointed to the guy. I said, let me tell you. I said, you want to know how we did that? That guy right there kept us going. So, but I had to get the strength to go to him and say, it won't happen anymore, unless we get that kind of support. I didn't know he would do what he did, that amount, but he did. And that kept us going. Yeah.
Wow. And how hard it must be, especially for somebody who's had so many successful events. Like every now and then you make a misstep and things like that. But and two, I don't know why it wouldn't. I don't remember. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't even think. I didn't even think about it. You know what I'm saying? But it's like that moment when you go, why wouldn't it have worked? Because the Sunday with the gospel and everything on Black Expo Sunday always works. So why not an entire, I get your reasoning.
Yeah. And I knew it wouldn't work, but I couldn't convince people that it would work. It wasn't necessarily my idea. But the reason it wouldn't work is because Chicago churches, we see them folks all every weekend.
That's true, because gospel was born here, and and every church has a good. Right. That's Mary, you the smartest one on the block, girl.
And not to only mention that, you know, I learned something a long time ago. Barry used to say, you have to call it what it is. So what was Uplift Chicago? What was that? We weren't speaking to anyone. Black Women Expo speaks to Black women. They know exactly who it's for, and what they'll see when they get there and what they'll experience. So that it happened one year and it was gone. So we moved on. It was back. We tried. Yeah.
But that's speaking to someone. Do you feel like that's what you're meant to do? Because you are so brilliant at it, you know, moving through broadcast and marketing, event, experiential, and you bring that Mary Green thumbprint onto everything you do. Like, we all know who you are in this town, and now in other cities that you have been consistently bringing the expo to. Do you feel like you're doing what you were born to do in life? And was there ever any moment when you doubted that this was what you were supposed to be doing?
Never doubted, never thought about it that way. I do believe I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I think that, you know, I love, you know, recreating something every year. And I say to my staff, and there's always some new staff members when we get started, is that, you know, we have to make it different. You know, we just can't keep doing the same thing over and over. I mean, I'll get bored with that. So I do think that's what I'm here to do. Not sure what that means, but I do think I'm here to do that, to speak to, you know, our community. It's a very emotional thing for me, though, when I talk about it, because life ain't always been easy. I mean, I was a teenage mother, you know, so I lost my middle son 3 years ago on my birthday.
I remember that.
So it's been tough. My sister, older sister that would come to the expo every year, and I don't know how she did it. She turned 81 May 5th. She passed away June 10th, I believe. And I was there with her, the only one in the room. So it's been very difficult. It was very difficult having the show without her being somewhere, you know, folding something, stuffing some bags, sitting in the chair, talk. Everybody knew her. And I was surprised at how many people knew her. So this weekend, people were coming up to me and said, I heard about your sister. You know, contractors who missed her, didn't see her. So, you know, we all have some tough times, you know, but I knew that I dedicated the show this year to her. Because I know she's watching, you know, but it can be difficult at times. We've had some ups and downs, as any business would have. And I just think that, you know, staying lean and mean too, I mean, I think is important. You know, I never needed a whole bunch of folks working, falling over each other, stumbling over each other. You know, you need a handful of really good folks that have the same passion that I have. And I think we found that.
Wow. How do you find that? Because, you know, everybody always talks about, especially now in the Great Resignation, as it were, right. That it's hard, and people have always said it's hard to find good help, or it's hard to find good people and things like that. What's the trick to finding a good team and building a good team? Because getting people to work for you is one thing, building a team is something different.
Yeah. For me, it's, you know, old school, it really is my gut. I don't like to interview. I don't like to interview potential employees. I don't, or consultants, because I'm not going to do it the way it's supposed to be done. You know, I'm feeling for something else, looking for something else, looking at you for something else. And, you know, you make mistakes, but you don't have to, you know, wallow in that, you know, let people move on or whatever. because you are, and especially with what we do, we have people all the time saying, wow, I didn't know it was this much work. Well, it is. It is, you know, so I think that's for me is just sort of like what I feel when I meet you, you know?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
All right, I'm coming into my final stretch of questions for you, Mary Green. These are the ones that are that I always ask everybody. What is your proudest achievement, and what do you still dream of accomplishing?
Wow. Woo. My proudest achievement is probably keeping the show together. I mean that. I've let a couple of really close friends know how much it costs to be at McCormick. They're like, I'm like, yeah, you know, which is why you don't find a whole lot of, you know, consistent Black shows there. And I've made that very clear to McCormick. You know, we are the only ones that's been here all of these years. So give us some slack sometimes, right. You know.
Show us some love.
Show us some love. And they do. And they do. And they did.
Good.
That's how we moved up into the bigger hall last year. So, but I think that and, you know, keeping my sons the best that I can together. I mean, a single mom, 3 boys. Most people never knew that I had 3 boys, you know, because they never saw them like that, you know.
Right.
And the last part of your question was?
What do you still dream of doing?
Probably seeing the world. All I do is work.
I was going to say, you know, you got to take time off to do that, right?
Yeah, I know that. That's the hard, that's where the struggle is when do you take time off? I mean, people say, I know you, they used to say this to me after the expo. I know you're about to go on vacation. No, I'm not. First of all, I've already got clients asking for a recap already. That's a Monday and Tuesday. What was the attendance? What was the this, that? And we haven't tabulated that. We don't know yet. But I know we can't take off for weeks and go, you know, around the world. And they're looking for that information to get to their clients. And these are generally agencies that want that kind of data as quickly as they can get it because they're trying to keep that client happy. So it's hard to just take off right away. We do have some time between now and December for Atlanta. So I think I'm going to find some time. But I'm not a vacation person anyway.
Oh.
No. 3 days and I've had enough. That week of somewhere, sleeping in a bed that's not comfortable, not mine. I'm funny.
But here's the thing, you love what you do. So
I love what I do. You know, I was mad that I didn't get to go with some friends this weekend because they went this weekend to see Bruno Mars in Vegas.
Yep.
And I would have done that one. But I don't take a lot of vacations. I don't.
Well, you always seem like you're having such a good time. I don't know that you actually need it the way I would tell other people. And I'm gonna let you do you. All right. Yeah. So my last question that I always ask everybody, and this is especially for you as somebody who's behind the scenes. This might be a little challenging because you don't like to stand out front.
I don't.
But when do you feel that you are at your best, truest, most authentic expression of yourself?
Wow. In what I do.
In whatever way you choose to see it. Because, and I'll say for you, Mary, and I don't often expound on this question because I like people to answer it the way they do. But I see so much of you in your work, in the events you do, through your staff, and how you create things and support our community. And that's kind of been a running theme of our conversation today. Because it's how I see you, I wonder where you see the truest part of who you are. Because like I see that smile in everything you do, whether I'm you know, whether you've asked me to come and host, you know, the awards one time for the expo, or whether I see you at the Black College, the classic that you helped to promote over at Soldier Field, all of the different things that you do. There's I see that smile in it. I wonder how you see the best, truest expression of who you really are as Mary Green.
When I'm in the kitchen. Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe I can cook.
All right.
Oh yeah, I can cook. And it came from being the oldest daughter still at home. My mom was working and I had to start dinner every night, Monday through Friday. And I would stand there and she would tell me, she would tell me I already knew what I had to cook for that evening after we got out of high school. But she would come in and taste it and I would be standing there waiting for the verdict. And I'll never forget one, she'd always tell me the next time put this, next time put a little bit more of that. The one time she said, wow.
That's that look.
Yeah. So yeah, when I'm doing that, I'm relaxed. I'm I get an opportunity to just think. I'm a foodie. I like to eat. My staff has always asked me to bake pound cakes or cookies. I make cookies and things like that. But I think that's probably my truest self. When I'm not working, the men that have been in my life, which ain't a whole lot, but they're like, people don't know that about you, that you just want to sit somewhere, when you get home and watch something, and that you're not into being always out and about and hanging out with this crew, whatever that crew is, so I think that is probably my truest self.
I love it. And thank you for sharing that. And maybe it's because so much of your work is out in the public and in the public eye that you have that balance. But one thing I will say is, if you put the energy into that cooking that you put into everything you do,
I do.
Elsewhere, then I know it's good. Sis, I appreciate you for all of that and the way that you have lifted me up in my career.
Thank you.
Both as a broadcaster and as the example of being an entrepreneur. You were one of the first events that said, come on in here and talk about your stuff, girl. And then when you finish that book, come back and bring it. And you know right. I will. Girl, I'm getting close.
Are you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So, and look, it looks completely different than it did from what we talked, because so many things have happened over that time. But just understand this, Mary, you were one of the first people to give me an opportunity. And
wow. Didn't know that.
And I appreciate it. This is my opportunity to say thank you for that. Because everybody thinks that because you've been in broadcast all this time, that when you start speaking and stuff like that, it's just an extension of what you've already done. And it is in a certain way. But you hired or asked me to come in and bring me. Yeah. Not just me from V103, but me from what I want to talk about. And so
I can't wait to see the book.
Thank you.
I can't wait. We'll have you there with that. We're going to have you there with the book.
Of course, girl. Listen, who else would I go to first? Right. Who else? Like
I know.
But I appreciate you, sis, and thank you for the work lessons and the life lessons.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So I have been knowing Mary for most of my career, and I've taken a lot of good advice from her, and today is no exception. Some of the important things that she shared, you got to keep moving forward. No matter what's going on, even with personal losses, the need and the importance of following through, the importance of doing your work, doing the work, not just talking about it. A lot of times we do get in love or fall in love with talking and planning and things. At least I do. I love her mother's favorite saying, just keep putting one foot before the other. And when you calm down, you figure it out. And sometimes that meditation in the movement, right? When you're doing things, it gets you to a space where you can see more clearly. And then learning to ask for assistance. Man, it's hard being able to ask for help or put yourself in a position where you feel like you need to, but there's no shame in that. And that you make mistakes, but you don't have to wallow in them. A lot of times we do spend time beating ourselves up, don't we? And then I love how she knows that she is doing what she was meant to do. And this idea that we have a mission and we stick to it, know who we serve, and being sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do and believing in that, and then keeping it fresh and recreating it, but staying true to the mission. I hope you stay true to your mission, Mary. I know you will. but you are doing great work, and I'm glad you took the time to share a little something about it with us today. More thank yous going out to you, our listeners and viewers, for your support. Couldn't do it without you. And a big thanks to my Fearless Authenticity production team for making this podcast happen. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, and share this episode wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube for the video version. I'd also love to have you in my community, so please follow me at JM Sparrow on social. Drop me your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your suggestions. I'd love to hear them all. This has been Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. I will see you again soon.